Hello, good evening. Good evening, good evening. This is Lewis Helps going live every Sunday at 7 p.m. with the hopes of building a community of solution-driven institutions, parents, grandparents, and communities and neighborhoods with a focus on rebuilding a relationship for our children. So my hope for this channel is that we begin to engage in a conversation through text, through leaving comments in the chat. We're on Facebook Live every Sunday at 7 p.m. Also, we're on YouTube Live every Sunday at 7 p.m. at Lewis Helps, the @ symbol, LOUISHELPS, all one word, at Lewis Helps on YouTube. The goal for this week is to get 50 subscribers. Please go to YouTube and subscribe at Lewis Helps. So I would love to start hearing what's on the community's mind, what type of issues you're having, what type of questions we have about our youth and dealing with rebuilding that relationship. Relationship is so very important. There's a guy named Howard Zehr, Z-E-H-R, Howard, Z-E-H-R. He is one of the grand proponents of restorative justice. Restorative justice builds relationships that have been torn down by crime and by abuse, by neglect, by the wounds that are caused by crime. Everything is relationship. And I love talking about relationships. And tonight I'm going to deal with relationships. What I believe is the most important relationship in a young man's life. And that's the relationship with his father. And his father is not just generically his dad who has his DNA. Fathers are father figures. It is the whole community. It takes a village to raise a child. That's one of the principles that have been broken, is that now we just look at it like those are my kids and those are their kids. All children belong to us because we are one people. We are one community. So the relationship you have with your father is not just based upon the biological father, if he was there or not there. It's based on your grandparent. It's based on, hello, Lola, how you doing? It's based on your uncles, your cousins, your older brothers. All this makes up the paternal father figure that you see and that you believe about yourself. And how a young man looks at his father figure determines how he will deal with society as a whole. And the most important relationship, hey, Ma, I love you. The most important relationship that a man will have will be with females, will be with the woman, for the two are one flesh. And that relationship is the building blocks of any community, of any society. Young ladies look to their fathers, their uncles, their brothers, as a way to find their meaning and their value in the world. So Howard Zehr believes that relationship is always broken when crime happens. I agree with him. And I also believe this: before you can have relationship, you must have forgiveness. Forgiveness is so huge. There's a sister on Facebook, Clotia Mack, who does an excellent job with that. Y'all should check her out about forgiveness. That's her gift. Guys, clearly giving her many gifts, but one of them is dealing with forgiveness. Forgiveness must precede relationship. When I was growing up, I knew my father. My father was in my life, was a great father figure in many aspects. I remember waking up on Sunday mornings, making homemade hash browns, watching the Green Hornet, Wild Wild West, the old school Wild Wild West, the Green Hornet, playing karate. I remember backyard basketball games. You know, I was so excited when I became a teenager and I could start beating him, you know, that passing of the torch. He didn't want me to beat him, though. He was beating me down to stop him from beating him. But I remember that growing up, and that was huge. He was my hero. He was my hero. The relationship I saw my father as being a hero. Now, at the same time, he had his own struggles. He was not the greatest husband. The relationship here with my mother was very toxic, very abusive. And at the same time, he was the biggest villain in my life. And it was very confusing for me to figure out who I was, because I was looking to my father to see, how should I be in this world? How should I live in this world? It made the relationships with everybody that I knew difficult. It made the relationship with my mother difficult because I was thinking, well, why don't she just do what he say do so then he won't have to hit her and stuff? Then they won't have all these problems. Why she keep causing all these problems? Which is ridiculous now, but when you a kid, you trying to figure out meaning, it made sense. It was logical at that time. So there was two sides to the man I saw as my first hero. Then I had my grandfathers. I was blessed to know my old folks. I had my grandfathers. I had uncles. I had older cousins. I got a lot of things passed down from them. A love of understanding from my grandfather. He was an educated man on my mother's side, Charles McCoy. He was always conspiracy theorist, always dealing with history and philosophy, always dealing with politics. Sometimes I find myself saying things that Charles McCoy would say today. That was the influence. TC, Mr. Vincent, he was a grandfather on my paternal side. Not my father's father, but the only grandfather I knew. From him, I would understand wisdom. He would always tell me the right thing. In hindsight, he would say it in these country colloquialisms and these idioms that I might not always understand using Socratic wisdom, but he always was telling me the right thing. Stay away from bad people, go to school, little Lewis, do the right thing. These were influences, were great influences. So this is not me blaming parents for everything. The issue is with all the great influences, and there's also negative influences. How did I come to fall into crime and be sitting in a jail cell at the age of 19, facing 33 years to life for taking a young man's life who looked like me, who had the same hopes and dreams of the future for me? How did I come to rip his family apart, my family as well? For those new to the channel, I did serve time in prison. I don't wear it as a badge of honor. I'm not going to always keep bringing it up, but it does matter because it makes me a subject matter expert on how did it happen. That's what I'm worried about, is how did it happen? And how can we prevent it from happening to your kids, from your grandkids that's 10, 12, 13, 14 years old? That relationship with their father is so important as to how they will deal with the world and how the relationships they will have, not only with women, with institutions, but the most important relationship is the relationship they will have with themselves. Like I said, my father was my biggest hero. He was also the biggest villain in my life. And it was very confusing. So I was a very confused young man. And I did not trust anyone to really ask the serious questions. And it was two parts. I didn't trust anyone, and also I didn't have the understanding, the comprehension, nor the vocabulary, nor the understanding of myself to even know what to ask. That's a highlight I want to put. Highlight this, y'all. You're dealing with kids. You got grandkids. Don't assume because you say, hey, anything you want to talk about, let me ask you a question. And then they don't bombard you with all this deep issues and problems and wisdom that's inside of them. A lot of times children do not have the vocabulary, the understanding to trust themselves to be able to express themselves. So you might have to look at behavior. Behavior will be a telltale sign of what's going on inside. Being withdrawn, not wanting to participate in activities they used to want to participate in. Don't assume because the child has not told you anything, there's not anything going on. I remember being a child, I hid many things. There was many things that I heard that I had no meaning for when I heard them, but they absolutely had an effect on me and my identity. So I think the majority of us understand and know that the relationship you have with the mother and the father and the relationship you have with your father teaches you how to be chivalrous or open up the door, teaches you how to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and we feel like that's been lost. And that's great, and that's very generic. And I think we understand that, the modeling and the mimicking through environment and the importance of having a mentor. I want to go a little deeper. I want to go into the heart of the problem. I am 100% convinced that the problem is spiritual. The whole foundation of the family, the male and female, is an illustration of Christ in the church. The groom and the bridegroom. Christ took on all the responsibilities of the church, which are the believers, because why? We were unable to do it. The difference in relationship with God is nothing about lording over females or lording over your children in a menacing sense. Power should never be abusive. It stops being power once it becomes abusive. The difference is God's responsibility unto the man. Adam knew he had done wrong when he disobeyed God. And God called Adam. The reason why he called Adam, it wasn't because Eve didn't have any responsibility, but the relationship and responsibility is what makes the man different and have a different role in society. The issue that we have in our families now is the issue I had in my family. I never saw a man surrender to God. If my father had been surrendering to God with all his flaws, what it would have taught me was, Lewis, your true father is in heaven. This is what children don't know. Children are looking to us, human beings, who are imperfect, who are going to let them down, who don't know everything, who don't have all the answers. And they're looking to us to be models, to be role models. And every time we're going to fail them. If we were to send our children and make them understand that our authority, that all order comes from God downward, and it's our job and our responsibility, hey, Tammy, how you doing? To honor God, and we honor God through obedience. That is the relationship that the man has with the child. And then that for changes how men deal with women. Because the order is, what did God say about it? And therefore, how should I lead then? Because if God said this about it, this is how I should feel about it. And when you learn that, you see a different type of man. So for young ladies that's looking for somebody to marry or, searching for that special someone, don't look at how they treat their mama. That's not real. Don't look at how they treat, maybe they have some children. Don't look at how they treat you. Look at the relationship they have with God. Is God the head of their lives? And what I mean by that is not in lip service, not that they go to church every Sunday, not that they have a bunch of Bibles and commentaries, not that they're in a bunch of Bible studies, but when they make a decision in life, is it in order with what God told them? Do they go and consult? Are they on their knees before the Lord searching for an answer? Have they surrendered themselves over to God? That is how the relationship is made right with all of society, from the woman, from the child, unto our institutions. We have poor institutional structure right now because the heads have not surrendered themselves unto God. God is order. God is the one who designed us and created us. So when we are out of order, nothing can happen but judgment, but chaos and confusion. There's only one order. There's only one law that must be obeyed. That's the law of faith. So when judging that relationship, when you see your child and you see how your child reacts in every situation, the issue they're having is not psychology. It's not because they don't have the latest clothes. It's because they do not understand the order of the universe, which is surrender to God because he is truth. We have a truth problem in society. No one wants to deal with the truth. Everybody wants to deal with how they feel, what they think about it, what the experience is. And learning from experience is a horrible way to live life. Learning from experience is the most painful and slowest way to learn anything. And it's a horrible way to dictate what's real and what's not real. It's through your own personal experience. Your life is too small. You don't know everything. You haven't been in everybody's shoes. You can't tell everybody what to do and how to do it. But if we all sought the same principles, treat others as I would like to treat me, I can't go wrong with that. He gave us a style to run with, I can't go wrong with that. So when we're looking at children, we're looking at how our young men are responding to our women. We look at how they talk to each other. We look at how we feel about one another. The missing link is truth. You have to surrender yourself to something that's bigger than you. And whether you believe you are. You are surrendering yourself to something. And you surrendering yourself to something according to faith. I don't know what God you're surrendering yourself to or what many gods you're surrendering yourself to. But by default, if you're not intentionally serving the God who sent his son to die on the cross, you're serving something. And it's having an effect on your life. It's having an effect in your children's life. It's having an effect in how male and females are interacting with one another. And it's having a huge effect on how children see themselves. Everything begins with self. You must teach your child to be selfish. Not selfish in his all mind, But selfishly, I should spend all my time in improving myself. Every hour, every minute should be looked with self-focus in how can I improve? Not in what they did to me, why did they do that to me, but personal accountability and responsibility for the actions that I do. I always say the best thing any parent or grandparent can teach a child is to learn how to do things they don't want to do because it's the right thing to do. That's what it means to be grown. That's what it means to be grown. Accepting the accountability and responsibility for doing things I do not want to do because it's the right thing to do. And the relationship that you have with God and the surrender to his principles is so important to how you see yourself. You can't see yourself in the right way if you don't understand where you come from, because you have no description, no definition, no identity of how you should work. When you name a thing, that means it should work a different way. It should be some different. So my camera on my phone works as a camera. The screen works as a screen. They both work in tandem, but they're not the same thing. So when a human being does not understand where they come from, they don't know how they should act. So therefore, they can never see themselves in the future in a true sense. They're always making it up according to the flesh. They're making it up according to what somebody else says. So the problem we have with our children, at the core of it, is identity. You don't know how to treat yourself because you never saw the male in your life surrender himself to God, which is the natural order of society. That when you see that male say, listen, I'm not your God. I'm your dad. I'm your uncle. I'm Mr. Joe that live across the street. I'm your mentor. I'm a man that cares about you. But the one who made you and created you is much greater than me. And we owe him a certain amount of our day. We owe him a certain amount of our mind. God knows that we are imperfect. But when we talking about giving honor, he understands when we give him our first fruit. When we wake up in the morning, do we thank him for waking us up? When we receive something in exchange, whatever it is, money or opportunity, do we thank him? Do we go to him and find out if it's of him? Because it might be beneficial in my heart, but my heart don't know nothing. My heart is wicked. My heart will lead me wrong. So sometimes all that glitters might not be gold. Do we go to him and find out what does he say about it? Is it true? We have to go find out the difference between true and truth. There's two different differences. What's true might change. I'm 45 now. Lord willing, I'll be 46 November 2nd. That's true, but that ain't the truth. The truth never changes. The truth is that God created us with purpose, with intentional design. And when children know that, then they can treat themselves right. And when they see that, the person you get that from is the males that you see in society. If the males in society will humble themselves before God and give him glory and honor, everything will start falling in line. It will be like magic. When you see a house in order, you see a man that has humbled himself to God. You see a house in chaos and disorder, you see a man that is in a chaotic relationship fighting God. And that house is not just some general house. I'm not talking about homes in general. I'm talking about every institution that we see. If it's producing wickedness, if it's in disorder, the head is sick. It's about authority. The head is sick. The head is being led by a man's heart versus by the principles of God. So in my personal life, I believe that reading is spiritual. That's why Moses came off them commandments and had to read it. That's the reason why we talk about the reading of the law, the reading of this. Study to show yourself approved. You got to read. You got to read. You got to read. You got to hear it in your ears. Faith come by hearing. Through communication. Through the medium of communication, this is how God builds up faith, and this is what is spiritual. So every week, I want to leave us with tools. I want to leave us with some tools. So the tools I'd like to leave us with this week is 3 books which have greatly influenced my life. First is by a brother named Myles Munroe. He is no longer with us. Anybody that knows Myles Munroe as a speaker, as a pastor, you know that he was phenomenal. The name of the book is Understanding the Purpose and Power of Men, God's Design for Male Identity. It is a very great tool for a framework for young men to find themselves, to have an understanding and comprehension of where they come from and where they're headed, to give them some guidelines, some principles, some morals, and to give them a greater understanding of their identity. Dropped about 12 of these off at the juvenile facility. Some of the young men were talking about the influence it had on them and some of the thoughts they had started having. This next book will be the next book I'll be reading with the juveniles is Mindset by Carol Dweck. This is a very famous book, cult classic if you want to call it. She talks about the difference between a set mindset, which means that you can't get better, you can't improve, you are stuck where you're at with your thoughts and with your abilities, and a growth mindset. When you can develop a growth mindset, that means nothing's impossible. And all it is it's a knowledge barrier. So if you go find out the knowledge, you get to understand the knowledge, you start applying it in wisdom, then you can grow. The growth mindset versus the set mindset. This is huge. This is a powerful book by Carol S. Dweck called Mindset. The final book I'd like to share with you is called Changeable. Changeable by J. Stewart Ablon. Changeable. Changeable deals with collaborative problem solving. He would go into him and another doctor named Green. Vinny, what's up? He would go, he would go into the harshest of facilities. Him and another doctor named Green, which was an older doctor. And I'm talking about like psychiatric facilities where people have been thrown away and they said we can never do anything with them. And they would use this collaborative problem solving to work through the mental dysfunction that these individuals had. And they were having great success. And it turned into a whole formula. And this is a very powerful book. He's going to introduce you to something called executive functioning skills. When I found out about executive functioning skills, it was like ding, ding, ding. That was a winner. Executive functioning skills are necessary every day of our lives. If you do not develop them as a child or as a young adult, you will be poor in them as you get older. They are not intrinsically developed, nor are they intrinsically made stronger. Executive functioning skills are things like frustration tolerance. How much frustration can you take before you go off the rails, cuss everybody out, or you get so frustrated that you give up on the situation? When you see this in an adult, they're struggling with frustration tolerance. How about being rigid? Do you know if you're rigid or not? Maybe your spouse has to have a remote control in the same place at all times. Maybe the bed has to be made exactly the same way. Maybe all their shoes have to be lined up exactly the same way. If anybody touches them, there's a problem. There's a meltdown. They're very rigid. There's nothing wrong with them. I would suggest that everybody get these 3 books, Changeable by J. Stewart Ablon. As you read this book, you will start seeing yourself. You will see your loved ones in it when you start talking about executive functioning skills. It will give you a greater understanding of relationship, a greater understanding of forgiving people for being themselves. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not a neat freak. They don't have OCD, right? Or somebody that's a slob. They got the clothes all over the place. They got the shoes all over the place. It's crazy to you, but they can function in that. And you think it's something wrong with them. They're nasty or they don't like order. Everybody has different personalities. And what he breaks down is how these executive functioning skills help us cope and be able to collaborate to come up with a certain amount of give and take in our relationships. And I would like to end with that. All those books deal with relationships, the identity of self, relationship that you have with the creator, relationship you have with your thoughts, and also the relationship that we have with our ability to control our behavior. That's why I chose those 3 books. They hit those 3 areas. Join us next week, Sunday at 7. We're going live every Sunday at 7. Lord willing, as long as he gives me strength in my bones. We on Facebook Live and also on YouTube Live at Lewis Helps. At Lewis Helps. The at symbol, LOUISHELPS. Go to YouTube, subscribe and like and share. Please leave comments if you have anything that you would like to leave for me to talk about. In April, I hope to start bringing on some guests. I already know that the brother Arthur Grice from Grice Corp, also Links Not Chains, has already said that he would be willing to come on and speak and talk about the things he's doing in the community. I'll be looking to create a guest list for April and start bringing on some people to talk, learning how to talk to myself. I'm used to pulling off somebody's energy and engaging with somebody, so I'll be happy to get some guests on here and get some conversation going back and forth. All right, I love y'all. Love y'allself. Every Sunday at 7 p.m. Subscribe. LewisHelps.com is my website. Subscribe on YouTube at Lewis Helps. Y'all have a great week. Hope see y'all Sunday at 7 p.m. Peace.